Hey gamers, welcome back. Today I want to talk to you about what I believe are the best Sega Genesis games to emulate on your favorite retro gaming console, whether it is my trusty Odin 2 Portal or one of the many others out there. I'm not going to focus on the usual Sega Genesis classics because let's be honest, everyone knows Sonic. Instead, I tried to put together a list that mixes a few mainstream titles with some hidden gems that will really enrich your collection. So let's dive in. Comic Zone. Comic Zone was released in 1995 and is a unique beat 'em up because it's set inside a comic book. The protagonist is called Sketch Turner and he's a comic book artist who literally gets sucked into his own creation and is forced to battle the characters that he drew in order to escape. The game is laid out in comic panels, and Sketch Turner jumps from frame to frame, fighting enemies and solving puzzles. So the visual style is incredible and was incredible for its time. It has, these comic books effects and super smooth animation, and playing it feels like being inside a graphic novel, really. So, although short and pretty difficult, I have to say, Comic Zone was praised for its originality, artistic direction, and technical polish. And today it's considered a cult classic among Genesis fans for sure. Robocop vs. Terminator. Robocop vs. Terminator is a fast-paced run and gun. The plot is basically Robocop discovered his own tech was used to create Skynet, the AI that destroyed the world, and created all the Terminators. So he loads up every weapon he can carry and sets out to stop the machines. The Genesis version was very well received for its detailed graphics, smooth animation, and also an unusual high level of violence for the time. In fact, Electronic Gaming Monthly named it the bloodiest game of 1993. Dark atmosphere, brutal action, and an over-the-top soundtrack make it a must-play. For fans like me, it's an absolute blast. Earthworm Jim. Earthworm Jim is a crazy action platformer published in 1994. The protagonist is a garden worm named Jim. He ends up in a super-powered robotic suit, and these two things combine themselves into an intergalactic hero. The game was known for its surreal humor and high-quality graphics. The story is pretty simple. Earthworm Jim has to rescue Princess What's-Her-Name, facing off against bizarre enemies like Psy-Crow or Queen Slut-for-a-Butt. And yes, those are their real names. It's a true cult classic that even got sequels, toys, animated TV series, so it's still one of the most original and crazy games that graced Mega Drive at the time. Ranger X. Ranger X is probably unknown to most of you. It was released in 1993 by a little known Japanese studio called GAU Entertainment, and it's a side-scrolling shooter that impressed at the time with its technical flair and unique gameplay. You control a high-tech combat mech named Ranger X fighting off an alien invasion on his planet. But what sets this game apart is its innovative gameplay, because you can both walk and fly, and you also have a secondary vehicle with you called X-Up that can be controlled separately. Definitely the controls are tricky, but once it clicks, it delivers a challenging and rewarding experience, in my opinion. I remember I had the Japanese cartridge back in the day, and I needed an adapter to play it. It took me forever to beat it because it's pretty difficult. But when I finally did, the satisfaction was unreal. Shakan the Forever Man. Shakan the Forever Man, guys, is one of the darkest and most ambitious games ever. Based on an indie comic by Robert Krause, the game starts Shakan, a warrior that is so arrogant that he challenges death itself. And guess what? He wins. But victory comes at a cost. Shakan is cursed with immortality and doomed to wander forever until it destroys all evil in the universe. Dun! A heavy premise for a 90s game, and it leads to a grim, punishing gameplay experience as well. It's a tough as nails action platformer. I used to play this at my best friend's house when I was there for a sleepover, and we would leave the console on overnight since there was no save feature. We never beat it, but man, what a ride. Street of Rage. And now it's time for a classic, guys. Even though I wanted to focus on hidden gems, Street of Rage simply had to be on the list. It's one of the most iconic and beloved beat 'em up of the 16-bit era, but I would say, of all the time. It's set in a crime-ridden city, and you play as three ex-cops, Axel, Blaze, and Adam, who take justice into their own hands against the crime syndicate led by the mysterious Mr. X. The gameplay is a classic side-scrolling beat 'em up. You walk left to right and punch anything that moves. And you've got flying kicks, lead pipes, knives, and even a special police call-in that clears the screen with a bazooka blast. The two-player co-op adds chaos and fun, making it a perfect game for afternoon with friends. It was a hit at launch and spawned a legendary trilogy that became a symbol of the console. Michael Jackson Moonwalker. Moonwalker is one of those games that feels like a dream. It was based on the movie of the same name. You play as Michael Jackson himself on a noble but bizarre mission. Save kidnapped children from a villain named Mr. Big, using dance, magic, and sparkle. Yeah, I know, it's weird. The gameplay is a side-scrolling action platformer with levels ranging from nightclub to graveyards to underground labs. And Michael defeats enemies with dance moves and choreographed explosions that wipe out gangs of thugs, basically. Technically, the game stood out, for its smooth character animation that capture MJ real moves, and the soundtrack was obviously one of its biggest strengths. For me, it was one of my favorite games growing up. I finished it multiple times, and whether you are a Jackson fan or just looking for a wild, fun action game, this one is totally worth your time. Castle of Illusion, starring Mickey Mouse. Well, Castle of Illusion was one of the first true gems in the Genesis library. It's a classic platformer, but with stunning attention to detail, atmosphere, and level design. The plot is simple but effective. Minnie is kidnapped by the evil witch Mizrabel, and Mickey ventures into the Castle of Illusion to rescue her. It really reminds of a Nintendo game, to be honest. What really makes the game shine is the variety of the environments. Enhances forests, giants, libraries, toylands, underwater stages. It truly feels magical. And for me, Castle of Illusion was pure childhood magic. It transported me in another world and gave me a sense of wonder like no other. It's definitely a must-play for fans of platformers like Mario and beyond. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Hyperstone Heist. One of the longest titles in the history of video games. This is the second mainstream title after Street of Rage that I just couldn't leave off the list. It's often compared, and I would say unfairly overshadowed by Turtles in Time on the SNES. But this game has its own identity and all of the economy polish you would expect. The story is again quite simple. Shredder has gotten his hands on the Hyperstone, a mysterious artifact that lets him shrink Manhattan, and he plans to do the same to the rest of the world, obviously. And it's up to the four famous turtles to stop him. For the Genesis owner, this was the ultimate way to live the Ninja Turtles arcade dream without dropping coins, basically. It's a super fun title, packed with that unmistakable 90s vibes. NBA Jam. NBA Jam is one of those games that defined an era, totally reshaping what sports game could be. Because this was anything but a regular basketball sim. This was a 2-on-2 basketball with insane dunks, not rules, and legendary catchphrases. The gameplay was fast, exaggerated, and totally addictive. So, no falls, no free throws, no real world logic, just non stop alley oops and flaming slam dunks. At launch, NBA Jam was a total phenomenon. Sales were massive, and even people who didn't care about basketball couldn't resist this arcade style madness. If at the time you wanted the perfect game to play with a friend and laugh your head off, NBA Jam was, and I think still is, the ultimate pick. Boom boom shakalaka! Shinobi 3, Return of the Ninja Master. Shinobi 3 is the pinnacle of the Shinobi series on the Mega Drive. It takes everything that worked in the early games and polishes it with smoother controls, faster gameplay, and pure ninja style. You play as Joe Musashi, and once again you fight the evil Neo Z clan. But this time it's not just about throwing shurikens. No, Joe runs on walls, performs acrobatic flips, and slashes with his katana. So the gameplay was fast, fluid, responsive. Each level offers something new, from a mystical forest at the start to high-tech bases, ancient temples, and even like futuristic stuff. For me, Shinobi 3 is one of those games that oozes cool from every shadow, and picking up a controller today still makes you feel like a total badass. And there you have it. I could have included so many more, like Outrun, the legendary Golden Axe. There are so many fantastic games for the Sega Genesis, but I wanted to keep things simple. With these games, plus the Sonic series, you have got a perfect starting lineup for exploring the Mega Drive's incredible library. Let me know what you think. Did I leave out one of your favorites? Drop a comment and tell me what you would add. Next up might be the Nintendo 64 or the original PlayStation. Tell me which one you would like to see first. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, take care, and as always, happy gaming!